Good evening, gentlemen. I'm back. I'm going to give you my assessment again of the war in Ukraine. I've been to Manila. After spending some time on official work, I've flown in directly to Mumbai. I'm going to be here for a month or maybe more. I'm going to have some time to talk to you all. As I promised last time, I'm going to give you my assessment of the Ukraine war. As you know, Russia had invaded Ukraine over a year back. They suffered some setbacks, had to retreat, but they came back. And now the battle has caught up. There have been so many other twists which I'll tell you shortly, but the first thing is that the city of Bakhmut is now almost in Russian hands. The Russians have mounted a massive offensive with rockets and artillery and tanks firing, and no less than the British general has confessed that Bakhmut is already in the Russian hands, almost. Of course, it's a Pyrrhic victory. Russians have suffered casualties, so have the Ukrainians. But the point is, if they take the city, then Russia is on the way forward. And what I had been saying earlier, Russia is moving forward. That's the crucial point. And there's another development. I've just learned that the Americans having second thoughts of giving free weapons to Ukraine because Ukraine is using the weapons so fast. Americans are finding it difficult to replenish them free of cost. And so they have told Zelensky that we would like you to pay for those weapons which we are going to give you. And that's going to be the nail in the coffin of Zelensky. Ukraine, as you know, the economy is destroyed, 9 million refugees floating around. It used to be a grandeur of Europe, ceased to exist, country devastated. So I don't think he's in a position to pay anything for the American weapons if at all the Americans start asking him for money. But at the same time, there's no doubt that he led the Ukrainians to doom. I wonder if I could have a talk with this man and ask him what's his aim. I mean, he says he's fighting the Russians. What for? Wouldn't he like to fight against hunger? Would he like to fight against a better life for his people? Or he's happy that 9 million refugees should be floating around Europe? Can't they stay at home? And if he had been less sagacious, not gone by ego, this war would never have taken place. But then, these are the ifs and buts of history, and you can't help it. It happens. You've got to take it the way it comes. Well, gentlemen, the situation is that the smaller countries of Eastern Europe, who were earlier under the yoke of the Russians, are the ones who are instigating the Americans to fight on and on. Though the Americans have probably realized that it's not worth fighting for Ukraine. It's going to be a losing proposition. You're going to put money into a dustbin. They're not going to come back to you. And the Russians are not going to be defeated. Now, I will just give you a small aside of an astrologer. I don't name anybody, but he's a friend of mine, and he'd given an astrological forecast. And he's an Indian astrologer, and he said, Ukraine की शिकस्त जरूर होगी. In other words, Ukraine will definitely lose the war. Now, talking of astrology and what I'm talking now are probably not connected, but this is just to tell you that everything is not honky dory for the Americans and the Ukrainians. They're suffering heavy casualties. Their country is destroyed, power stations disrupted, and with all the refugees going around, the Ukrainian army fighting, not knowing how to use the sophisticated weapons which have been supplied by the Americans, what's happened? They couldn't push the Russians out of Ukraine. And I remember reading the press conference, or rather, I went to the transcript of the chief of the American general staff, four-star general, and he had said it's going to be very difficult to throw the Russians out of Ukraine. Now, if a four-star general says that, I would believe him more than some of the people sitting in the armchair, Ukrainian expatriates, and saying, we are going to win and we're going to throw the Russians out. It's not going to happen that way. But there's another danger which is lurking, and that danger is something. Suppose there's an escalation, and if there's an escalation and a nuclear device is exploded somewhere, then what's going to happen? We must remember that the last two world wars, the first and the second, the Americans were separated from the arenas of the conflict by two massive oceans, the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean. Very difficult to reach America. It's not the case now. And America has to be very careful that you don't catch a tiger by the tail. In this case, the Russian bear by the tail. So, gentlemen, I hope sanity will prevail. I'm not a warmonger. I don't want war to continue. I want them to be all around peace. But sometimes peace doesn't come even when you want it. And so the situation is Russians have made some headway in Ukraine. And if they continue like this, they could overrun a lot more area. But I will concede one point, and I agree with the American four-star general when he says, I do not envisage a Russian capture of the entire Ukraine. I think it's true. Russia will not be in a position to capture the entire Ukraine, which is a very big country. At the maximum they can hope is to reach the Dnieper River and take the land east of that. Well, we'll have to wait and see what happens. The war is continuing and it's changed texture in a big way. Americans are thinking about the cost of the war also. You can't keep fighting perpetually, keep on supplying weapons because Ukraine is using up the ammo and the weapons more with greater speed than the Americans and that small allies can arrive, can supply Ukraine. And as I said, Goliath the Hood's famous theory of air warfare holds true. Whoever controls the skies wins. And at the moment, the Russians control the skies over Ukraine, and I don't think how in any way Russia can lose. Gentlemen, I close now and say goodbye. I hope you like my video. Share it with your friends. Don't forget to like it and don't forget to subscribe. I close now and say goodbye. Take care and God bless.